Okay, I'm back. Now, keep in mind, I'm only touching upon a small fraction of all the evidence I have about the Morton family during that era. I haven't even gotten much into connecting him down to Edward Morton. I haven't gotten much into all the details of Charles Kerr and Charlotte Tatlow's children, etc., etc., etc. So I think I'm going to be doing a lot of video presentations on this. And I think I'll probably be satisfied that these videos will supersede the ones that I uploaded earlier. Okay, so now we're at the 1799 portion. I still haven't covered Dr. Morton's will either. There's some interesting things in there. Okay, so on the 10th of February 1799, an event occurred highly important to me and my family. This is the death of Dr. Morton. There he is right there. He's buried at St. Mary the Virgin at Twickenham, which is close to where he lived. Which is also either his residence at the museum or residence near the museum that was integrally connected to the museum somehow. I'm not sure how. I do know that Dr. Morton owned it. He willed it to his children, or his beneficiaries, is a better way to say it. Let's get back to this. He left £800 a year to his widow, that was Elizabeth Pratt, during her lifetime to be paid from his Irish estate. He also left her his property in Westmoreland. Now, Jill sent me a photograph of the farm area in Westmoreland. She describes it as a smaller farm, nothing huge or anything to write home about. I'm not well versed in land ownership in the 18th century in England and what that meant. It could be that just by virtue of him being a doctor that he was able to purchase it somehow. Now, another interesting thing is that Jill said that when she looked in those archives, she wasn't really able to find records of how he actually got that land. I thought that would be an angle to go at, because perhaps it would have been willed to him. There were Mortons that lived in the Westmoreland or the neighboring towns, including Sir Albertus Morton, the author of the Scott of Liza Manili and Liza Maynard, wrote in her genealogy, is saying that they supposedly descend from him. So it's not out of the range of possibility that piece of land was willed to him. The problem is that I haven't been able to find record of him acquiring it, and I've yet to find a will that names a son Charles Morton that is a doctor in the will, or even a John Morton that has a Charles in it. So I'm kind of at a lot. There's a lot of Mortons out there. I guess I can look for every single Morton will that took place after 1716 and probably before 1799. That's a pretty good length of life. It's 83 years. So probably, you could probably stop at 1780. Access to archives, the UK's archival collection that's online. You can download wills there, and I can look them over and look at all of them, I guess, and look at the contents and see if I can find a Charles in there. But for now, I don't. Again, I still can't substantiate who his dad is, and that was one angle to go out, but apparently it's dry, at least as far as I know. Yeah, someone else can try, I guess. Okay, so getting back to this, he left me one of his executors, £50, and another sum of £100 as a mark of his regard expressed in more affectionate terms, recommending it strongly to his heir to continue me in the management of his property. The Irish estate he left to Charles Kerr on his assuming his arms in name of Morton, by which he must hereafter now be called. Okay, let's get into a couple things, and again, in my next set of videos, when I get to that part, which I think will be fairly close, I'll be discussing Dr. Morton's will. And I do note that in Dr. Morton's will, there is mention of when he's discussing his daughter's inheritance, I believe, although it doesn't make any sense in my mind, I think about it right now, that, well, yeah, actually it does, that if someone were to, if his son were to die out without any without issue for any of his heirs, descendants by his daughters, to inherit his estate. They would have to adopt the arms of Morton, and that gets back to the William Chichester thing I was talking about. Worked extensively trying to come up with the Chichester genealogy. I haven't completed it yet. I haven't worked on it for a couple years now. I probably should get back into it, but it got so big it was hard to manage at one point. But nonetheless, there was a William Chichester that was a minister in England, and he had a very distant cousin that had the last name O'Neill, and that branch, and that cousin was, of course, at one point, Chichester was a daughter that married into the O'Neill family, and then things passed down, and basically the next heir in line, even though it was a very, very distant cousin, happened to be William Chichester. And the provision in Mr. O'Neill's will was that Chichester drop his arms and adopt the arms of O'Neill and the last name of O'Neill as a condition of him inheriting the estate. And he did that, and there are, to this day, still O'Neills that are actually descendants of John Chichester and Thomasia de Raleigh that are still populating the earth today. There's some that even came to Texas, and they have a webpage about the O'Neill Castle, but I am digressing. I should get back to this. But I find that interesting, and I guess the point that I should make is, again, this seems to verify, kind of almost makes it a moot point of me trying to go out and find the Hackney College attendance record for Charles Kerr. Now he's calling him Carr, not Kerr. That he's pretty much verifying that Charles Kerr doesn't have the same last name as the man he supposes is his natural father, which doesn't make any sense to me. That is, again, another strong mark against it. And when I look at all the evidence together in one conglomerate, I don't see how Charles Kerr could have been the natural son of Charles Morton. I do see, again, Charles Morton having an association with the Foundling Hospital. I do see the tragic death of his wife, Mary Berkeley. I do see him marrying a second wife that was at least a second wife that was an older woman that wasn't going to have any children. And so, around the time that this Charles Kerr was born, or maybe a little bit before. And so I really honestly get the idea and the impression that Charles Kerr was adopted, because I don't see any wife putting up with having the cousin come in from out of state and hook up with her husband to have babies with. It doesn't make any sense to me. Which is what you have to believe if you want to believe Elizabeth Pratt was the mother of Charles Kerr. I've said that once, I'll say it again and again and again. Okay, continuing in 1799. In about a month after this event, which was the death of Charles Morton, Charles Kerr disclosed his passion to Miss Tatlow, she was born, in fact, Anne Amory, and that's John Tatlow's wife, for her daughter Charlotte, and begged her interest with me in his favor. I felt much embarrassed by this application. I saw, on the one hand, the very handsome situation in life in which it would place my daughter, and the great estate which must descend to her family. On the other, I saw reason to doubt the propriety of the young man himself, whose conduct before he left England had been very reproachable. So he didn't say what, but this is reproachable. And though strict discipline had preserved him from any very grievous errors during his abode with me, a relapse when he became his own master was to be dreaded. But he was good-humored, strongly attached to the girl, and seemed to have a strong feelings and gratitude and affection toward us all. Another matter which affected me very much was that the world might view me as an artful man who seduced his patron's heir into marriage with his daughter. I at first thought it incumbent upon me to apprise his mother of it, but he did not know Miss Morton was his mother, though he might suspect it, nor did I think he would submit to her decision if it was opposed to his wishes. So, again, he's just come to the conclusion absolutely that, Charles Kerr, Elizabeth Pratt's the mother. kind of implies that, but again, the other evidence that I see here completely contradicts that. That's the conflict I was talking about in the very beginning. Now, I think I should now go into Dr. Morton's will. Maybe I should stop and continue with that.